So we're going to move on now, and I'd like to introduce you to three people who are going to take part. How do we take those inspirational words that Valerie's given to us and put them into action? So the rest of our program is going to be devoted to that. Getting practical, lessons that are learned, things that we can put into practice ourselves. So right now, I'd like to introduce you to three speakers in turn. First of all, Dwayne Brandy, who's going to talk about decolonizing the curriculum. Dwayne works for Oasis in a place called Media City in Salford and has led the decolonization of the curriculum and won awards for that from outside of Oasis nationally. So Dwayne is going to talk to us about what he's discovered about how you go about that for 5 minutes. And then I'm going to introduce other people to you. Over to you, Dwayne.
Thank you, Steve, and good morning to everyone. Just going to share my slides, hopefully you can see them. So as mentioned, my name is Dwayne Brandy. I am the principal or assistant principal at Oasis Media City. So today I'm going to reflect and update you on our journey. So this is probably the second time I've appeared on this, and I really want to show the holistic anti-racist approach within our school and our steps towards decolonization of the curriculum. But I want to start off with the why, which is very important. So why? Education is an important vehicle to tackle racism standard. It needs to start in schools looking at policies, structures, and governance to break the cycle. For example, the national picture is Black students still, as an ethnic group, still fail to hit annual attainment targets set by the government. On top of that, lowest attainment 8 figures, Black Caribbean children still twice as likely to be permanently excluded and 5 times likely to be suspended. We need to break that cycle. Again, if you start looking into the global picture, 30% now of our school population are from the global majority. However, less than 10% of the teachers represent from the global majority. So that's a massive disparity. And if we go further on with the statistics, only 3.6% of head teachers within this country are from the global majority. If you want to dive even a little bit deeper, there's less than 300 Black heads within this country and 4% of governors are from global majority. We need to break that cycle. So today I'm going to start talking about curriculum and why it's very important to have a representative curriculum within our schools. Historically, our curriculum has been responsible for the omission of diverse histories and multicultural knowledge, but we know that, and we need to start making steps to make that change. 10%, only 10% of the GCSE modules refer to global majority contribution. That cycle needs to be broken. 5% of our exams represent authors from a global majority heritage. We've been on a journey of representation, ensuring that global majority are proud and present and ensuring that we have an anti-racist approach. And we've done this through a vehicle of student voice. So this is a typical snapshot of the diet of the curriculum within schools. What we're looking to do is make that change, look into the narratives, what have been told, the voice has been left out, and does it prepare our students for curriculum and diverse future or global future, what awaits them? It's very important that we look into that. And that's been driven through student voice, as you can see here. And that's framed the narrative of this holistic plan. In previous sessions, I've looked into curriculum, staff training, student education, leadership, and community. Today, I'm just going to do a deep dive on what we're doing in regards to reviewing the curriculum and adaptation as well. To underpin this vision, I've come up with a vision, which is to implement a cultural approach that views the school for the perspective of the learners and to challenge and change attitudes of society. This is important just to frame the narrative. And what we started to do is audit individual subjects to see what is representative, what isn't, what could be changed. And we've done that in a snapshot. So there's a before and after, but we've done a deep dive with history. Now, we started decolonizing the curriculum for history. It's not fully there yet, but we started to make changes. We've done some good work from our history lead, Eloise Marsh. She's been fantastic to increase representation of global communities. Not just representation, but ensuring that the representation is not just historical oppression, but diverse in its specific historical inquiry. So we're looking through a range of multiple lenses to ensure that we have different perspectives of the same topic. I'll give you an example of how it works. Year 7, and we've been working in conjunction with the University of Manchester. We've been looking into units of migration. So if you have a look, there's a standard kind of script what you need to follow, but we've been looking into alternative views. We've been looking at empires such as Mali, alongside the Norman Conquest, alongside the Black Tudors, medieval England. We're looking into Queen Elizabeth, her reign, the exploration versus colonization. That gets investigated within the classroom year 7, year 8. We're looking into how the Africans drive the abolition of slavery, the impact of the revolution, industrial revolution, the Salford and Manchester. Where do those links tie back to? The role of colonial soldiers within this country and also from the global diaspora. That's important. In year 9, we're looking into Holocaust, the Arab-Israeli conflict. But what we started to do is introduce a module talking about Black British civil rights. And we're looking into it in regards to topics such as being Black and British, Notting Hill, activism, local history in Manchester, and also nationally. The Black British Panthers, the 1970s, 1980s in terms of activism. We also looked into the Mangrove 9, Manchester uprisings, and it's been well received and responded. This is some of the feedback from the students. As you can see, very positive in regards to the enjoying the positive examples and learning about diverse histories from different subjects. And again, we start to look into the attainment. We start to look into the attitude to learning as well. So we're doing a deep dive into that to see the topics, but how started to be decolonized, looking into global representation has been well received, and it started to improve in attainment as well. So I'll just go back a slide. This one's important as well, because this is staff feedback, and most, if not all, teachers strongly agreed about the global representation in the subjects. The positive representation has made a significant impact in the school. I had to throw this in, I had to sneak in a photo of our anti-racist ambassadors. But the whole point in this slide to show the impact is there's a 10% increase of global majority students studying history. And again, if we do this with all subjects, especially underrepresented subjects in terms of profession, STEM, geography, computing, you can start seeing significant change, how curriculum can start leading by educational change. Here's some of the partners. Here's the accountability in regards to Leeds Beckett University and the anti-racist framework. And moving forward, I'm proud to announce I've secured a position within the trust as well, focused on anti-racist curriculum, which is good, fantastic. And Joe Broadfield, who'll be speaking in a bit, has been looking into the staff and an anti-racist staff network. So if you work for OCL, please get involved in those sessions. And that is my time. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much, Dwayne. You packed it in there. I've been asked endlessly, can people have your slides? Because there's just so much there. But you're going to get an opportunity to put your questions to Dwayne along with our other 2 speakers after our coffee break. So you get a chance to form those questions. Dwayne, that's absolutely fantastic and really quite mind-blowing. But I think everybody, you'll see that Dwayne's serious about this, and certainly across Oasis schools, we're exporting this material. But you'll see that from what Dwayne said, some of it's local to Manchester. History isn't just what's happening on the other side of the world, it's social history, it's what's happening to you. So this is always bespoke, isn't it, for wherever we are. So much there. Please put your questions into the Q&A for Dwayne for after the break. And right now I want to introduce the person that Dwayne talked about, and that's Joe. Good morning, Joe. It's good to see you. I'll leave Joe to introduce himself. Suffice to say that Joe works for Oasis. Again, we've got people coming on in a bit that aren't part of Oasis, but Joe works for Oasis in Birmingham and is a senior leader in one of our schools there, but is doing a fantastic job across, inventing ideas and stimulating our thinking around breaking the cycle across Oasis. Joe's going to talk about listening spaces. Over to you, Joe.
Thanks, Steve, and good morning, everyone. As Steve said, my name's Joe Broadfield, and I'm the Associate Principal at Oasis Academy Woodview in Birmingham. And as Dwayne kindly said and introduced me, I lead the anti-racism staff network across the trust. At Oasis, inclusion's at the heart of everything we do. It's our aim to be fully committed to being a listening organisation, an organisation that has an integrity and a truly inclusive culture. But one of the things I've learned early on, and one of the main things I've learned, is inclusion is not about bringing people into what already exists. It's about making a new space a better space. There's a real big difference between everyone's welcome here and actually this was created with you in mind. It's absolutely vital that all members of the organisation feel listened to, they feel heard, and they feel that they've got a positive contribution to make. And it's difficult, as with any large organisation, it can often feel like change is dictated from the top. And often one of the things that's come up through this network is the realization, although it's pretty obvious, there's a lack of diversity at senior level. So sometimes there's a real risk that decision making is only made by people from similar backgrounds with similar experiences. So you're getting like an echo chamber of similar viewpoints being heard. So that's why it's so important to build this listening culture across the organisation. And we're doing it in many ways. But we know from research that listening builds trust, it reduces misunderstandings, it helps to eliminate conflicts, it encourages empathy, it actually improves people's leadership skills. And it really, the most important thing is it makes people feel valued. Listening is how an organisation learns, and listening is how an organisation gets things done. So with this in mind, I was really honoured to be chosen to launch the Anti-Racist Staff Network as a response to the work of Break the Cycle. We formed this network because there's a growing realisation and a growing awareness that systemic racism exists in education and wider society. It was brought to the fore by the events of George Floyd's tragic murder, but if you actually think about it, how much has really changed in the 20-odd years since Stephen Lawrence and the Macpherson report. These issues that are affecting us, our communities, our children, still exist today. So this network, the purpose of this network is to identify the priorities for Oasis and the communities we serve, and actually incorporating this into our anti-racist strategy. And I'm really deliberate with my use of the word strategy rather than policy. A strategy is something that's lived, it's owned by people, whereas a policy is just something that's often lived, is laminated and stuck on a wall and not actually lived. So this network highlights the issues, but it's not just about a moaning shop, it's not just about saying what the problems are. It's actually proposing solutions and crafting the energy and the expertise within the group into making a real impactful change. The group's open to all staff across Oasis, the wider subsidiaries, OCL, and it's a real mix of people's real expertise. It's great that we have people ranging from class teachers, senior leaders, site staff, librarians, a real mix of people with different roles across all sort of ethnicities, which is really fantastic. It's been really good to see senior leaders also involved in the network from at trust level and board level. But this dynamic conversation is about making change across the trust. It's about championing what we call the 5 C's. The first is conversation. It's a conversation about the issues that need changing. Then it's that communication upwards of staff views. Then there's the commitment to hold Oasis to account for these changes. It's all well and good saying these things and having policies in place and strategies in place, but are we actually sticking to it? Then there's the challenge to really educate staff as well as pupils about anti-oppressive practice, anti-racism. And then the final C is curriculum, which Dwayne really leads expertly on. It's about creating that curriculum that emboldens and reflects our community and promotes inclusion. The network's only been going for a relatively short amount of time, but actually it's made a really significant impact on the organisation. It's been really beneficial to share some examples of best practice going on across the trust. Dwayne leads absolutely superbly at Media City and has been a real trailblazer for this anti-racism work. He started it all off across the trust, but by identifying these pockets of innovation, we can learn from each other and identify how we can spread this best practice across the trust. It's also really valuable to see things through multiple lenses, different points of views. And Dwayne's spoken about this earlier, but this has had a massive impact on the primary curriculum. Another absolutely massive positive is that as a result of recommendations from this group, the anti-racism work has actually become a paid role. So leading the staff networks is a paid role, leading on the curriculum is a paid role, because actually all too often in the past there's been issues with racism. It's been left to global majority people to solve the problem of racism and often use their expertise, the emotional labour, and that's just been harnessed for free by organisations. That would never be the case for leading an organisation in teaching and learning, SEND, all these different areas. But for anti-racism, it seems like, oh, that's a freebie. So the fact that these are paid roles now is absolutely superb. Lots of good things have come of the group, but actually they've raised real concerns, real issues. And some of the issues that people have raised that are really affecting them is sort of discrimination, especially in the form of microaggressions. There's a lot of debate whether microaggression is the right term, but really there's these comments, these acts that are sprinkled throughout the day. I think Dwayne's referred to as death by 1,000 paper cuts. They're aimed at marginalised groups to make them feel bad about themselves. A classic example, me as an associate principal, I've been asked multiple times at school in my 3-piece suit with a pocket watch, a Homburg hat and overcoat, are you the caretaker, mate? Why am I being asked if I'm a caretaker? Why am I not seen as a senior leader? There's also people have raised concerns about actually not being listened to. It's when they've raised grievances in terms of racism, you might be dismissed with comments like, oh, I didn't mean it like that. And actually even worse, if you raise these issues, you can be labelled as a troublemaker. A common thread that's come through is that real lack of representation at senior level. It's great that there's lots going in place at the moment to develop that next level of school leadership, but is that reflected at board level, at national education level? People do feel concerned that middle promotion often stops at middle leadership. Sometimes they feel recruitment's not always open and transparent. And there's a lack of people sort of mentoring and developing that next generation of talent. Sometimes people feel they can't be their authentic self at work. They feel they need to modify their behaviour to fit in, and that's not right. And the group's led much discussion about decolonising the curriculum, but there has been positive impacts. It's great that we've got this staff network. There's sort of 60, 70 people regularly involved with it. But actually, Oasis is a massive organisation with 6,000 people. So how do we get the views across the trust? Well, we're in the process of launching an inclusion and diversity survey. So we've got a real baseline where we are. We can hear everybody's views who don't necessarily contribute to this network. But this network is really important because it feeds in at board level and we get responses from the board. It's been absolutely fantastic that people like Steve, our CEO, our founder, our CEO, directors are now part of the network. So it really makes people feel like they're listened to and also valued. I think that's my time. So thank you for listening, and I'm going to hand back to Steve. Steve, you're on mute. It always happens.
It always happens, always on mute. Actually, my wife wishes I was on mute most of the time. So, Joe, that was brilliant. Again, so much input there. And again, let me say, there's lots of opportunity after the coffee break to put questions to Joe along with Dwayne. Those two, it's decolonising the curriculum, creating an organisation that listens. And I think what I'd follow up from what Joe says, if you're going to create space to listen, you know, we're going to get it wrong, aren't we, together? We have to have those honest conversations and understand that our language sometimes isn't what we want it to be, and our attitudes aren't what we want them to be. We're all in process, aren't we, of becoming more of what we wish to be in life. We talk about that much more as we go down the line. Right now, before the coffee break, I want to introduce you to the third person from Oasis. Let me say that this isn't about Oasis. This is about what we've been learning because we've been talking about the break in the cycle. Well, if you talk about it, you've got to take your own medicine and do some stuff about it. So the third area is something we'll talk about now just for 5 minutes. And Saqib Chaudhri, who is an Oasis principal in Croydon at Shirley Park Oasis Academy, is going to talk about, he's going to talk to us about recruitment and employment and how we create an equity and equality there.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Steve. Before I start talking about recruitment and employment, really, I wanted to just give you an idea of who I am and what I lead. So I'm the principal of Oasis Academy Shirley Park in Croydon. 40% of our students are on free school meals. We have a school that replaced a failing school 12 years ago, known as Ashburton, and in the local community it was called Trashburton. And 80% of Ashburton students would leave without 5 GCSEs, including English and maths. Fast forward to 2019, the last time we did some real exams, and our sixth form ranked in the top 1% of the country. We've managed to send our first students at Shirley Park to Oxford and Cambridge, and we have GCSE results that place us in the top 17% of the country. And we're really proud of what our staff achieve each and every day with our students. Myself, it means a huge amount to be the leader of Oasis Academy Shirley Park in Croydon. I myself went to one of the several failing schools in Croydon in the 90s. I myself am the first graduate in my family, and I very well understand the trappings of poverty that our young people can often face. As a father who was a taxi driver, and a mother who was a housewife, and being the first graduate from my family who lived in Oasis social housing, the journey that I have been on has meant that actually throughout the time that I've been through this process of being promoted all the way up to a principal over the last 17 years of teaching, that I've always suffered from barriers, and some of those barriers are very much internal. I suffer from a huge amount of imposter syndrome. I know and realise that I very much sound like someone from South London and someone from Croydon, and so overcoming those barriers has been a huge challenge for me. And the ways that they've really come about, the how around what I've done, firstly comes from mentoring and coaching. So I was mentored by someone who was a retired head teacher, who was white and who was quite affluent middle-class lady. And she was fantastic because it was almost the inverse of me. But she was invested in me and showed me and made me understand things that I'd never really had previously. Also, the CPD that I undertook in order to move towards headship, I went on to a headship training program that was deliberately aimed at taking middle leaders and making them heads. And that time and effort that CPD program invested in me was something that I always try and give back to my staff. And then lastly, the interview process. It's really important that when you are interviewing, that you are introducing potential candidates to your Black leaders inside your school, your middle leaders, your senior leaders, your Black and Asian leaders. But it's also really important that you introduce them to your well-being coordinators if you have them. In Shirley Park, we have an equalities and diversity lead. And we make sure that, again, the people who are coming for the interview understand and realize the systems and structures we've got in order to support those individuals from those kinds of backgrounds. Because what's more important than anything is that people such as myself feel welcome, included, and calm inside that interview process. But also we feel comfortable that we can be ourselves and we will be accepted. Because although I represent the majority of my school in terms of the student body, it's also really important that our staff body represents the majority of our staff body represents the student body itself. And so at Shirley Park, we have a number of Black middle leaders, we have a number of BAME senior leaders, and it's important that we've also got the mix of gender in there too. And we try each and every day to do that. And I want to share with you really a time when I really realized the why behind what I'm talking about. I really realized the why behind why is it so important to have representation at middle and senior level. And the story is really around some jalebi, which you can see in front of you on the screen now, I hope. So this is a very popular South Indian sweet dish, and a retiring dinner lady in a school that I worked in many years ago, a school that had a 60% Asian, South Asian population of Indians, Pakistanis, and Bangladeshis, and a 20% Black population. A retiring dinner lady, as a gift, as a parting gift to senior team, bought everyone some jalebi and some Asian sweet dishes, just to say thank you for the years of service that she'd had at the school. I was really heartbroken to see that nobody from senior team had even tried or touched the jalebi and the sweet dishes that she had bought. In fact, they ended up in the bin, untouched and unloved. And I myself found that I came to a point of realization working in that school, a school where I was the only minority leader, a school where every middle leader and every senior leader was white and middle class, and that did not represent the student body which they led. And in that school, I realized really that if you can't love the children's culture, the culture that the children come from, you can't really love the children. And if you can't love the children, you can never help them overcome. And so for me, the why behind our recruitment, the why behind our retention of Black and Asian and minority ethnic leaders is very much around, let's recruit deliberately. Let's recruit the best in order to make sure that our students feel like they've got representation at the top, because truly that is how we will overcome. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Saqib.